Hey everyone, it's time to start chapter 21, the 1920s and the coming of the Great Depression. But first, we'll focus on the roaring 20s. There was a growing middle class. In towns, people had washing machines, electric irons, electric fans, telephones, and cars. But out in rural areas, people were still drawing water from wells, using outhouses, and having no electricity. You were drawing water from wells unless you could afford to install a gravity-driven system with a windmill to pump water into your house. But even so, people who lived out in the middle of nowhere could still order almost anything they wanted through mail order catalogs. We've talked about those before, but you could order almost anything through the Sears Roebuck or J.C. Penney or Montgomery Ward catalog. You could even order something sparkly for your shoes, even if you lived in the middle of nowhere. Not everybody welcomed these changes. The older generation was worried about the morals of young people. That is not a new thing. The 18th Amendment had been passed, the Prohibition Amendment, which made the sale of alcohol illegal. The WCTU was one of the groups that helped get that passed, and they thought the groups that got it passed thought it would prevent people from drinking. It didn't. People still drank, but they just drank illegal liquor. They went to speakeasy clubs to drink, and organized crime families popped up and began to sell and transport illegal liquor and became wealthy. This is Al Capone. During this time period, more people are moving towards and into cities. In 1925, an, an effort called Forward Atlanta really tried to get lots of new businesses to relocate in Atlanta. They said the South, Atlanta, Georgia, has a non-union workforce, low taxes, and a good climate. Come prepared to talk tomorrow in class about why those would be things that would make somebody relocate their company to Georgia. It was pretty effective. By 1929, 700 companies had moved into the Atlanta area, including General Motors and Sears. It's during this time period that there's another wave of immigration, but instead of being from Ireland and England and Northern Europe, you have more immigrants from Southern Europe, from Greece and Italy and Eastern Europe. They opened retail businesses, they brought new foods and new customs. So some cities like Savannah had a fairly significant Greek community during this time period. Transportation is changing during this time period. Of course, we've talked before about Henry Ford and his Model T. His assembly line made cars affordable for more Americans. He offered installment plans. He said his goal was to produce a product that his workers could afford, and he did. By the 1920s, cities began paving major streets, but it wasn't until the 1920s. Airplanes are developed during this time period. In 1907, Ben Epps makes Georgia's first airplane flight in Athens. We've had a Today in Georgia history about him. In 1911, Wilbur and Orville Wright established a flight school in Augusta. In 1923, Charles Lindbergh makes his first solo flight at Southerfield in Americus. He later goes on to be the first man to fly across the Atlantic solo from New York to Paris. And in 1925, the future mayor, William Hartsfield, helps establish an airfield in Atlanta. It becomes what we now know as Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport.